Welcome, welcome. If you're just joining us, we are going to put in the chat one thing we like about fall. You can use an emoji, can use obviously you can use your words. But one thing you guys like about fall, we're going to give everybody just 60 more seconds to get logged in, and then we're going to get started. The colors and I love cooler weather. It is too hot today. One of my son's therapists left you guys, and she said that her car said it was 110 degrees. And I was like, well, that's certainly a reason to stay inside, right? And I love the colors, the orange, the red, the brown. Does anybody else have something they like about fall? Okay, you guys, we are going to go ahead and get started. I love the cozy vibes and hobbies too. I like to curl up with a blanket and read a good book. Uh, I also love the apple orchards. If you guys haven't been to some of the apple orchards in North Carolina, they are gorgeous, along with all those fall trees and all the pretty colors. Okay, so we're going to get started. So today we're going to talk about building early communication skills through routine. Now, a lot of what we're going to talk about is more relevant to our youngest learners, but some tips are good for everybody. I'm very excited to talk to you guys about this, but I want to start by introducing myself. My name is Anastasia. I'm a parent educator with the Exceptional Children's Assistance Center. Prior to this, I taught special education preschool, and I'm very excited to be here with you guys today to talk about communication. We're going to spend about an hour talking. If you guys have questions, if you guys will put those in the Q&A just in case. Sometimes I miss stuff if it's put in the chat, if there's a lot of people chatting. But let's get started telling you a little bit about who ECAC is. So ECAC is a private nonprofit parent organization, and we are committed to improving the lives and education of all children. But we have a special emphasis on kids with disabilities and special healthcare needs. We serve as North Carolina's Parent Training and Information Center, and we are funded by the U.S. Department of Education Office of Special Education Programs. As the PTI, we help families that have a child with a disability from birth through 26 in navigating early intervention, special education, and even the transition to adulthood. We approach this work with practical knowledge and personal experience. All of our parent educators are parents of children who have a disability, and we range a wide variety of experiences. Some of our kids are adults now, and then some of us have young kids. My son is only 3, whereas some of us have adult children with varying needs. We provide families with information and resources to help them make informed decisions, communicate effectively, as well as become their child's best advocate in school, as well as the community and in life overall. We also serve as North Carolina's Family to Family Health Information Center, funded by the Health Resources and Services Administration, also known as HRSA. This program helps families to navigate both the healthcare systems in North Carolina. Each of these, so F2Fs are staffed by highly skilled, knowledgeable family members who have firsthand experience and understand the challenges faced by kiddos who have special healthcare needs and their families as well. The person that leads that program, Christy Moore, does a lot of work talking about Medicaid and the waiver programs we have here in North Carolina. At ECAC, we serve all 100 counties, and all of our services to families are provided at no cost. Now, also at ECAC, we partner with a variety of agencies that have a shared desire to improve outcomes for children with disabilities. So on the screen right now, you're going to see some of the projects that we participate in. Some of these partnerships include working with the Division of Employment and Independence for People with Disabilities. That's the new name for what used to be Voc Rehab. And our Achieve program provides virtual pre-employment transition services to students with disabilities ages 14 to 21 across the entire state. This includes students who attend public schools, charter schools, and students who are homeschooled. Some of the classes taught include self-advocacy, job exploration, self-advocacy work, I guess I said self-advocacy twice, you guys. Workplace readiness and financial literacy. These are designed to help students bridge that gap from high school to adulthood. We also partner with the Deafblind Project, working in conjunction with both DPI, the Department of Public Instruction, as well as the ECU, which is Eastern Carolina University. And remember, if you have a child who might qualify for that, definitely give us a contact. Your child does not have to be totally deaf or totally blind. It's kids who have any combination of visual or hearing impairment. And this project works to provide a variety of supports and services designed to meet the needs of those families and those that educate them, including even providing one-to-one support, education, and leadership development. We also work with the LENS Network, which is Learning Equity Network, a network for solutions, and participating organizations receive grants to advance their work to reduce race and income disparities and educational outcomes among students with learning differences. We also work with the Department of Public Instruction with both the Office of Exceptional Children as well as the NCSIP, the North Carolina State Improvement Project. And both of these projects are to improve the quality and effectiveness of educational programs and instructions for students with disabilities in North Carolina. We also have a handful of short-term projects. So that is a little bit about us. So today we are going to identify some ways to build early communication skills, identify ways to prepare for transitions big and small, and then we're going to talk a little bit about some community resources. So for some of our youngest learners, communication is hard, especially if we have kiddos who are nonverbal. One of the best things that we can do for our kiddos is always continue talking. Some of our kids are going to work on their skills in speech, but sometimes we need to have that carryover in the home environment. Communication is a skill that is ongoing and is always taking place. Today we're going to look explicitly at baby sign, real object prompting, picture communication, and core words. But I also want to take a moment to talk about just talking overall, communication overall. Sometimes it's really easy when we're in our home and our kiddo is not talking to think, to not really wonder too much about it, right? One of the best things we can do for our kids is to narrate what we're doing. To say, hey, we're going to do this. This is how we're going to do it. This is what we're using, to provide them with that rich vocabulary immersion. Because even if they're not speaking yet, that doesn't mean that they don't understand and that we can't build their vocabulary to ensure that we have a rich understanding. That's going to help no matter what type of communication patterns we are using later. It's really important that we're building their vocabulary, because receptively building that vocabulary is only going to help us. And ways you can do that very naturally are labeling the things in your environment. Now you can do this with picture cards or with words, or just take, a moment every day. Hey, we're going to draw. Look, we've got pen, we've got paper, and just reinforcing those. We can even do this with emotions. Hey, your face, your lips are turned down. That makes me think that you're sad. Why are you sad? Let's think through some reasons you might be sad. You might be sad because you don't want to do this activity, or you might be sad because your brother took your paper, So this active narration is just going to build their vocabulary, so that no matter what we're using, we're continuing to build their vocabulary. And we always want to make the least dangerous assumption, right? We always want to assume our kids are competent and assume that they're able to understand, so that we can build those communication needs. Okay, so looking at picture communication, some of you guys are going to be familiar with PECS, which is a picture exchange system, but you can also have just a list of pictures available that children can point at. They can say what I want to eat, what I want to drink, what I want to play with. Now, the good thing here is yes, there are millions of boards, right, that you could get off the internet, but you could just take pictures of things that you have in your home and print those out, or you could show them pictures on your phone. I am a big proponent of knowing that as parents, many of you are very busy and may not have time to make these boards. I would also encourage you that if your child is getting speech therapy, if they are using specific images, ask them for a copy. Say, hey, I see that you guys are using these images. Can you just give me a copy so that I can use those with him and we can have that carryover from school to home or class to home or even just therapy to home? And most therapists are great about it. We can even use boards to say, this is what hurts. I've seen people have pictures of their child's body and they can point to different places. What hurts? Does your knee hurt? And you can model this by having a picture. Let's say your child falls down and scrapes their knee. You can show them a picture of them and point to their knee and say, I think your knee hurts because you scraped it. I think you're going to need a Band-Aid. Any modeling that you can do is going to be so important with this age group. Communication is a skill, right? Yes, there is some natural language development that we're going to get from hearing and observing what's going around us, but everything we can do to bolster that. And I am not going to lie to you guys, this is hard. So I have a nonverbal 3-year-old, and sometimes, even knowing that I should, so sometimes that like having to narrate what I'm doing and to talk when I'm not getting a response back is hard. Or remembering to grab the visuals to show them, it's one extra step, but it's going to be important in the long run to provide those opportunities to ensure that kids are participating. And you don't have to start with many, right? Like we can start with a choice of 2. I want, and then provide 2 pictures. If you're using picture exchange, you can do picture exchange, or you can just have the boards and help them to point. Now at the beginning, when you're first starting this, you are going to want to reward their efforts. At first, we want to reinforce them and make sure that, oh, you asked for a cookie, I'm going to give you a cookie. Now, if it is something that you don't want them to ask for a lot of, maybe don't, when you're first starting out, maybe don't start with the cookie. Or if you do, you could do something like Skittles where you're only doing like one at a time. Because one of the problems that people have is you're not going to want to continually reinforce, because sometimes you're going to want to say no, right? I cannot give you a cookie every time you ask for it. But at the beginning, you're going to want to honor their requests. And so thinking about what that looks like in your home, and maybe saving the food items for snack time. Okay, what snack would you like? And show them a picture. We're going to talk a little bit about real object prompting in a minute, but having picture choices available is great, and modeling them is great. Kids are not going to automatically know what to do when you present them with a piece of paper with pictures on it. So saying, oh, mommy's hungry right now. Mommy wants an apple, and pointing to the apple. Look, I pointed at apple. That means I'm going to get an apple. And then eating the apple. What do you want, Johnny? And then helping Johnny to make a selection, and then showing that correlation. Johnny asked for a cheese stick. I'm going to get Johnny a cheese stick because he asked for a cheese stick. So having these things available and practicing the modeling is super important. And that extends with whether you're talking about pictures, real objects, or even later talking about assistive technology, right? We can't expect kids to learn if we're not showing them how to do it, right? We're not just going to sit it in front of them and expect them to be able to do it. Okay, so another really cool thing is core boards. So core boards have the most common words that are used, and we're going to go through the Project Core Quick Start in just a minute. But I would encourage you all to have one at home or in a classroom, and I saw several of you guys are in classrooms settings. Have one with you, have it laminated. There are different kinds for different kinds of learners. It allows for excellent modeling. You could say, I want, and then you can have a real object. One of the great things about core boards is the signs never move. They're always in the same spot. And when I worked in one of the school systems, the assistive technology department, she made fringed vocabulary. So she had the core board, but then on the side, she had picture choices that went with each activity. So she had picture choices for just toy activities. She had picture choices for what we're going to do next. She had things that went with it, but her base was always those 26 symbols on the core word. So looking right now, we're going to do this Project Core Quick Start because I want to show you their website. So Project Core was developed by UNC, and it's, like I said, it's a great resource. One of the first things you can do here where it says select a universal course selection tool, you'll go here. And then I saved this so I could do it with you guys. So you're just gonna input the information. And then we're gonna talk about what kind of kid we have. Okay, does the student have any useful vision? So I'm going to complete this like I'm completing it for my kid. Yes. Is the student able to physically point? No. Can the student learn to reliably use eye gaze to make a selection? Yes. And so it says to consider using the 4 corners, eye gaze universal core communication system. If we had answered some of these questions differently, we would have a different result. And then, you know, you're going to print it, show the system, show how to make it. Yeah, so sorry, you guys. We're going to show the child how to use it. If they cannot point, can talk about partner assisted scanning. One of the things I like is they have little tools for all of these so that we're able to show and learn. They even have modules here to help even more, to make sure that as we're using this, that we are being effective, and that there are other tools. You can also find the resource and how to implement with your kiddo. For a lot of kids, they're going to start with the universal core, which is, if you look, here's their page, and the universal core is this is the classroom poster. But here's the communication board. They do have these 3D symbol options too, but I did want to draw your attention to this one. So when you look at this one is specifically for kids who have vision impairment, cortical vision impairment, so that they have those high contrast images to look at. And so that's why you'll see that the images on that other screen were black with those highly contrasted images. I'm not sure why that didn't show up, but you can get the ones that have the high contrast images, and then use the 4 corners for kids that have those vision concerns. And so here is the core board. Here you'll notice that when this one was created, they highlighted the verbs in green, not as in red, pronouns are in one color, questions are in one color. That's not necessary, but if that's helpful, definitely do that. One other thing I've seen is that for some kids, this is still visually overwhelming. So you can actually cover some of the images, and you can do this in a variety of ways, but you could cover them with like Post-it notes and block out the ones we're not ready for, and then build up to the full 36 images. And so, I mean, overall, again, this requires modeling, and you can say, oh, it's your turn. And you could point to you and turn. It's your turn. I do not. And I'm pointing at my screen as though you guys can see me, but modeling this with it held up. And I've seen people have these in a variety of places in their houses, taking them to the playground with you to model, because we don't want children to just have language at home, right? We want them to have language everywhere. So bringing it with you, because this is a paper-based tool, it lends itself for going from environment to environment. And like I said, having this as your base and then having some other options to go with it to help, like if you know you're going to a pumpkin patch, maybe pulling up a couple of pumpkin patch words, like hayride, pumpkin, scarecrow, maze, whatever vocabulary you think is important, and pairing it with this Some speech therapists are also really good about being willing to partner with you in doing this. Now, one thing you won't see on here is yes and no, and that's because when the core board was sounded, and just overall in general, we want kids to have a distinct way to say yes and no that doesn't require them to have anything else. And that's why you won't see it on here. You can still, for whatever your purposes is, use the not to indicate no for some kids. It really, I think everything is customizable to what is best for your kid and what you're wanting to communicate and how it's easy to model. I've seen other kids who have just yes and no cards that they're able to use, or thumbs up, thumbs down, smiles or frowns. I think you're saying yes because I see you smiling when I suggesting that we go to the petting zoo. I think that you don't want to go to the movies because you're crying when I asked if you wanted to go. And so whatever, is easiest for you guys, but just remember to pair it with that modeling. So one of the other options, obviously, is baby sign, and you'll see baby sign in a lot of different preschool environments. It is not exact, and it is not American Sign Language, but it is a good way to introduce some easy hand signals for communication. These take practice just like anything else. But one of the good things is that Baby Sign, they have a website, Baby Sign Language, and they have a dictionary, and you can pull it up and it shows you exactly how to make the sign. So this is mommy. And so one of the good things here is you can also print these out so that you can make a little book of the signs that you have taught and the ones that you're using, which is helpful if you're working with other people, right? Because it's not helpful if you and the speech therapist are not using the same signs to teach. And they also have videos here that you can use to help as you're learning these signs. They're down here. And then they also, one thing I do like about their site is they have the related signs, so it's easy. Like if you're just starting with, basic family members to do mommy, daddy, etc. As with anything, if you're going to use baby sign, you want to be really consistent. So if you and your partner and your teacher, we all want you to be signing the same so that your kids can understand it. As you are using baby sign at home, it's often good to also pair it with a visual of a visual image and to build further understanding. But baby sign is a great tool, and one of the cool things I think about sign language is for kids that have low vision, you can actually make adapted signs on their hand to help them learn. But that would be something you could consider talking about with your speech therapist or your hearing impairment teacher. But this site, which I'm going to send you guys after, has a list of all of the different signs that you guys can use to build that vocabulary. And you can use this while you're modeling as you come across a word to build that connection. It's really great, and you'll see most preschool teachers use it for the bathroom so that kids aren't, I have to go to the bathroom. And they have a quick and easy way when they're outside or inside to quickly and discreetly tell you that they have to use the bathroom. But it does require some practice, and it requires, sign language does require certain ability in terms of fine motor, but you can have adapted signs for some of your kiddos or for some of your learners. Okay, so real object prompting. Some kids are not ready for flat pictures. It's not real to them. It doesn't make sense to them. And so using real objects is a great way to use prompting. Now, obviously you can do this with fruit. You can do this with pretty much anything that you can lift up, right? If you're trying to make a choice between objects or items, you can use any type of real object prompting to let them choose by looking at or pointing at or indicating that this is their choice. And you can pair this with a core board too, right? Like you might be out and you might want them to use their communication to make a choice. And you can have on the core board, you can say, I want, and then you can present several options. Which one do you want? This is obviously very easy for food items, but you can also do it with toys, and anything that is tangible. These are, this is like a level before picture communication, because picture communication, pictures are not always exact representations, and a lot of the symbol softwares have very vague outlines, like books. It doesn't have an exact book. So using real books to choose from gives them a tangible item that they can walk up and choose, and it can make a connection. So a lot of speech therapists and a lot of teachers will start with real objects and then move to pictures before they move to other types of software. Have any of you guys done real object prompting in your classrooms? I see a lot of you are teachers, so I'm sure that some of you have done some really great things with real object prompting and visuals. Has anybody had great success with real object prompting? My favorite, you guys, my son, we used real object prompting with musical instruments last week, and he totally was presented with two objects and pushed them both in the floor. So I guess he didn't want either one of those options. But you know, that is also communication, right? He's saying, no, I don't want this. You present me with these options and I don't want them. This is not what I want. I didn't sign up for this. He's, as my boss would say, he is advocating for his needs. Okay, so that feeds right into what I wanted to talk about next. Behavior is communication. Sometimes, especially when we have nonverbal kiddos who may not be able to adequately express their wants and needs or express their feelings, verbal communication can be one more sensory overload. We know sometimes that the more verbal information we're giving in these times sometimes impairs those kiddos' abilities to self-regulate. So there are lots of things that we can do in those moments. So we can use social stories, we can use communication boards, we can use pictures of calm down choices. But at the end of the day, you know, it is understandable that our kids are going to get frustrated when they're trying to communicate big feelings to us and we are not able to hear or understand because they're not able to adequately tell us what they are feeling. And so one thing that is really great in this space is to model emotions and model emotional language when you are talking to your children. And I would say that goes for any feelings. Right now, mommy is really frustrated because X, Y, and Z, or daddy is really, really happy right now. You can see how my face looks like this, and I'm happy because X, Y, and Z. So again, lots of communication modeling of what those conversations should look like will give them the vocabulary. And we can also use pictures ourselves to model that, to give them that ability to communicate with us, right? Communication and feeling, emotions are big, right? And especially to a 3-year-old. Sometimes when we have big feelings, it feels like the whole world is ending. And we might be crying, and you can say, hey, Alexander, I see that you are sad. I see that you are crying because you're sad. I think you might be sad because the dog stole your toy. Let's get it back. And you know, we can problem solve with them that way, but using language to model our own self-regulation processes, even though that's hard sometimes, will help build those connection skills and will help to provide an example for them. Another great thing you can use to do that is social stories, you can say, you know, and we can actually use our own kiddos when we're talking about social stories. When I feel sad, I can, and then provide choices and then reinforce that. Another thing you can do is take pictures of your kiddos feeling various emotions, happy, sad, angry, and then provide them with a mirror. Say, look at the mirror. How do you feel? Have them point to an image of how they feel. And, oh, I see you're sad. I'm sorry to hear that. Can you tell me why you're sad? And you can have options if you have an idea of why they're sad, or, hey, I see that you're upset. Let's think of ways you can calm down. You could go to the calm down area. You can shake this sensory bottle. You can have a few minutes with your favorite toy. If they're upset because we're doing an activity you don't like, you can have a break. And modeling those and making sure that when we're angry, we're modeling those as well, or when we're having big emotions, because we want kiddos to see us using the same tools and using those techniques. When I used to teach preschool, we used to teach those breathing exercises. And there was this one where you'd put your hands on your head and you'd breathe like a balloon and then you'd blow out through your mouth. And I remember, so one time during circle time, everybody was talking. And I was like, oh my goodness, Miss Anastasia is so frustrated. And then we all did the balloon together. But modeling that for them and modeling the vocabulary for them to introduce them to those terms so that when they hear them, they're making the connection. Okay, sad means my face looks like this. I have a downturned frown. I could be sad for lots of reasons. And providing them with the necessary language, tools, pictures. You can also do this with Mr. Potato Head, because they have smiles and you can put the smiles on upside down as opposed to right side up, and provide real object prompting. It looks like our link is gone for the Real Zone, so I'm going to find the handout that I had up, and then I will make sure to include it in the follow-up email. Again, so on the right, you saw it says today I feel having an emotional check-in with pictures. Now this is going to look different for every kid, right? For some kids, you could have a blank circle and let them draw a face on every day to have an emotion check-in. For some kids, you can have them point to or use their eye gaze to look at the picture that adequately describes them. For some kids, you're going to be able to use emojis. If you're going to use emojis, make sure they all look the same. The reason is that if there are differences in, I'm going to give you an example in a second. If there are differences, you might see that they always gravitate towards one face. For example, my son has cortical vision impairment, and one of his IEP goals is that he's supposed to identify his emotion. So the therapist held up two pictures. One was a smiley face and one was a sad face. The sad face was outlined in black. So in the chat, what do you think that my son always chose? He always chose one of those images. Do you guys know which one? So in therapy, he always chose the sad face because he could see it more clearly because it was outlined in thick black lines. And the other image was just a yellow circle on a white background. So it was more clearly defined since he has visual impairment. So it's really important that we have consistent images, because then, the speech therapist is like, you don't look sad. Your face doesn't look sad. You're not sad. Another thing, if they're making a choice, we're going to validate it. If they're communicating a need or an expression, we're going to validate it. And we can use that language. If the child is choosing sad and they don't look sad, then let's talk about it. Hey, you're saying that you're sad. Your face doesn't look sad. Let's use a mirror. I see that you're smiling. I think that you're happy. Are you happy? And we can reframe it to make sure that we're building those connections, right? And same thing, when we're presenting pictures, when we're presenting new pictures to children, make sure they have a foundational understanding of what it is you're showing them. For example, if your child has never seen grapes, seeing a flat 2D image may not have much meaning for them, whereas introducing it first with that real object and letting them try it, taste it, will make a bigger difference for some kids. Speaking, we want to make sure our kids have exposure. So blending all of the different communication types to fit your child and make it uniquely yours is super important. So looking at transitions, how are we going to prepare for transitions? So there are a lot of ways that we can use communication techniques to prepare for transitions. We can use social stories. We can read those before big transitions like going to recess, changes to our schedule, going to special places. If you know that there's a fire drill coming, you can definitely use it for that. But you can also use things like visual timers. There are websites that just have visual timers, like we're going to do this for this activity. We can use visuals to show what we're doing next. So we can do things like a first then. And this is just as simple as I have seen this done with just a laminated piece of folder, you guys, where the piece of folder said first on one side, then on one side, and it had the two little Velcro pieces. First, we're going to read this book, and then you can do free choice play. Or in the home, first, we're going to eat dinner, then we are going to read a book or play with bubbles, or then we're going to do a bath. It communicates, what's going to happen next. It provides them with, a shorter version of a schedule. We're just going to first, then, and it takes away some of that like questionable, what are we doing next? We can have a specific transition song that we use to trigger certain transitions. This is great for moving from place to place in a classroom. This could also be great for getting out of the door in the morning. Like, I hear this song. I know today is a school day because I hear this wake up song every day that it's a school day and I have to go to school. So this is that site I was telling you guys about where it's got all kinds of visual timers. Now, some of them are more fun. So if it is your cleanup timer, you maybe don't want one that is quite as engaging as some of these. But there are all kinds of different kinds of visual timers that you can use to help motivate your kiddo. So maybe we're gonna race the timer. It's cleanup time. We used one of these more boring timers to tell you that it's cleanup time. We're gonna use one of these more exciting ones, like you've got 5 minutes. Let's see how much we can get cleaned up before the star shoots or the egg hatches. Using these types of resources to help us communicate our needs and help to meet their needs. I think this is just I'll send you a copy of a first then board. But another thing we can use is a continuation of a first then board. We can use a picture schedule. So for this one, I put mostly classroom images, but you can do this for home too with meal times or any activities that you do every day, like potting, showering, going to bed. And you can have as few or as many. I have seen kids who are able to have their full day and they know what they're doing from the time they wake up to the end of the day. There are some kids who start with 2 images at a time, and then we build to 3 to 4. And you can do these in a variety of ways. I've seen kids with just a Velcro strip, and we know that we're going to start with breakfast, and then we're going to have circle time, then centers, then recess, then lunch, then nap time. And then each time something's done, we put it in the little basket underneath so they always know what's coming next. It communicates to them, hey, we're going to do this, and then we're going to move on. You can start with a first then board, which just may have the first 2. First, we're going to have circle time and then breakfast, and then we could move to a picture schedule with more choices. And you don't have to use these very abstract images, right? You could take pictures of this specific kiddo eating breakfast. this specific kiddo attending circle time, or in your house, you can take a picture of your kiddo eating dinner. You can take a picture of your kiddo watching a movie. You can take a picture of you guys, if you're going to the zoo, a picture of them at the zoo. Anything to make it more relevant and relatable to the kiddo that you're with. You guys are going to get a copy of the PowerPoint. I am going to fix that broken link before I send it out. But you guys will get a copy of the PowerPoint to print, and you can print it if you would like. So, thinking about bigger transitions, what else can we do to help them prepare? So, thinking about our youngest kiddos, sometimes back to school, or mommy might be having a new baby. So let's think about things we can do. So we can read books. There are a ton of books available for children on pretty much all big transition types, from anything from moving to new babies to new animals. Reading those books, and then even having a social story with pictures of them and pictures of, like, if you know what house you're going to move to, can be super great. We're introducing them, like if you're having a big move to another house, showing them a picture of the house, showing them a picture of what their room will look like, labeling that stuff for them. Driving, if it's a new school, driving by the new school. If you're moving to a new neighborhood, driving to that neighborhood, showing them so it won't be so scary when we first make that change and transition. If it's for back to school, meet your new teachers and new service providers. Set aside that time to meet new people. If you cannot meet them, ask for a picture so that before you start school or start with a new therapist, you can show them a picture. Say, hey, this is Miss Kimberly. This is what she looks like. We're going to see her every week for speech, just so that you can introduce them. It's not a brand new person. It's not as scary. We're less likely, to have as many behavior concerns and big emotions if we're not springing new people and new situations on kiddos without preparation. Sometimes it's unavoidable. That's just a reality of life. But where we can prepare our kids, it's always helpful, even if it's just on your phone right before they go in. Hey, you're starting school today. I'm so excited. Don't forget, this is what your teacher looks like. And she is so excited to have you. So it's just not them going to school in a brand new place, in a brand new big classroom with brand new people. They have some exposure to who it is. And you don't have to limit that to just school staff, right? If they have a new doctor, if they're going to a new activity in the community, or if you're taking them to on a field trip or a vacation, show them some pictures of the things you're going to do. You can add those to your first then board. You can add them to your schedule. And I always say, whenever possible, social stories are a great resource, you guys, because these are very personable, and you guys can make them specifically about your kiddo. And one of the biggest things about social stories is you want it to be primarily positive, and tell them what the expectation is using them. So if it's circle time, you could do Alexander is going to circle time every morning. Alexander will sit in the circle with his hands to himself. Alexander will listen to his teacher. We don't want to add negative behaviors into our social stories if at all possible. Okay, so before we look at this video, you guys, this is a video of my kiddo and his first time accessing eye gaze device. I thought it would be fun to share, and then we're going to talk a little bit about assistive technology.
Oh,
I'm sure you guys all heard my huge gasp. But this was my child's first time, right? He's nonverbal, and he was able to access this eye gaze device. And I was so excited, right? Because we don't know what our kids can do until they try. And there are so many ways that we can use assistive technology. And assistive technology is not just these giant iPads and big devices. Assistive technology can be low-tech stuff as well. We have Big Macs, and we have sequencers, and all kinds of lower tech devices where we're just pushing a button and it makes a word, it says a word. Some devices even had, they had like older devices like the Go Talk 4. Some of these now have iPad apps to make them different. But a lot of people still have some of those lower tech ones. But assistive technology is any item, piece of equipment, or product that's used to increase, maintain, or improve the functional capabilities of an individual with disability. And so we really want to think about, right? It's not, is pairing some of our visuals with some spoken language, right? So that they're communicating. Not every nonverbal kid is going to use their voice, but we can give them a voice with some of the technology options. Now, there are millions upon millions of options. Everything from Proloquo to Go on iPads to these, $1,000 Tobii devices. So if you were thinking that your kiddo would benefit from assistive technology, and your kiddo has an IEP, you can talk to them about getting an assistive technology evaluation. And also, if you have speech therapy, private speech therapy, you could talk to them about whether they would need it. I want to something that happened to us recently is, so my child has a counting goal, right? And where he's supposed to sing counting songs. Now my child is supposed to participate in that goal, but he doesn't have a voice, right? He can't say it. So how can we bridge that gap? Well, there is a low-tech assistive technology device. It's just a little button. It's called a sequencer, where you can sequence up to a certain amount of levels, and each level can say something different. And they can use that device to participate in songs and to participate in activities. That way they're, having active participation. He can count with them. He can demonstrate his learning by using that device, even if he can't verbally say it, right? And so we want to think outside the box and think about ways that we can encourage our children to have voices and to be able to engage, right, with both their teachers and their peers. Now, in addition to asking for assistive technology evaluations, there is also in North Carolina the Assistive Technology Program in CATP, and it's a state and federally funded program that provides assistive technology services statewide to people of all ages and abilities. And one of the cool things about them is they provide device demonstration, short-term device loans, and even some education on assistive technology devices. And so one thing that is great about them is you can borrow a device. We actually are on our second device that we have borrowed from them, because we got the first one and they're both eye gaze devices, right? You would think that they're both the same, but they're not. One my child can access and one my child can't. And so before trying to get a device through insurance, this was great because we can try a variety of devices and find what fits. Some kids can just point and touch an icon, just like they could point and touch a picture, and they can communicate in whole sentences that way. Some kiddos can use eye gaze. Whether you're using pictures or software for eye gaze, please remember that eye gaze communication, it's very taxing. Tracking for some kids who have visual impairment can be very difficult and can be very tiring. And after a certain amount of time, they might have eye strain and need to take a break. But there are kids who can use eye gaze to have entire conversations. There are also head switches that can be used for communication. There are so many types and modalities for assistive technology. We really want it to be what fits a child best. There are many people who have to try a couple different kinds before they find what's right. And whether you're a teacher or a parent, all you can do is offer talk to the speech therapist about what would be best, offer the opportunity, model, because even with those, you have to model, right? Whether you're using just a lower tech device or one of these fancier devices. Yes, some kids, depending on their cognition, can explore those devices and communicate effectively fairly quickly. There are other kiddos that are going to need more time, more exposure, more modeling to be successful. In North Carolina, at the Department of Public Instruction, there also is an assistive technology consultant who has a lot of resources as well. In the follow-up email I sent, I'm going to send you guys the webinar that we did with him recently where he shares a lot of the resources and tools that you guys can use. And that one of the best things about him is, he's there for educators and therapists to reach out to and consult with about different types of assistive technology. Okay. We actually are about 10 minutes early, so we have some time for some questions. I'm going to launch our poll. As you know, we are federally funded, and so they like to know how we're doing, what you guys think. One of the things I like is there's an open-ended question at the end. If you guys put other topics you would like to learn about, we look at those for figuring out what other topics to offer in the future. I know we've got the IEP road trip coming up, as well as I'm going to do one on present level and goals in the next couple of weeks. So if you guys will do the poll, and then if you have any questions, now is the time to ask. We do like questions. You guys will be getting a copy of all of the resources we shared in the follow-up email as well. I say we have lots of educators here today, so I'm definitely going to put in the follow-up email a copy of the core board so that you guys can print it out as well. Oh, absolutely. Thank you guys so much for coming. This session is recorded, and once it's on YouTube, I'll wait to send the email out. It'll for when it's on YouTube, so that you guys can just have the link. And definitely, you guys, if you have kids that you're thinking about assistive technology for, definitely contact the NCATP. They have great resources, and they have great ideas for helping kiddos build those communication skills so that they can access devices. When they're younger, pictures are great, kids, but later to have more complex dialogue, having a device is a great way to build those more complex communication strands. As you guys wrap up, if after you've completed the poll, you guys can leave. If you don't have any other questions, I will be sending out the follow-up email probably tomorrow. Well, so I'm actually off tomorrow, but my coworker Tony will be sending it out. And I will make sure that you guys get all of those resources and ideas. And also, have your therapist, whenever possible, provide you copies of what they're using. Or if you have a kiddo who is supposed to have visuals for certain accommodations, ask the teachers what they're using. Or if you are the teacher, provide copies to the families of what you're using, because consistency, if you guys are both using the same visuals, is going to be great. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate your time today. I hope you guys have a great day and that you guys have a great weekend this weekend. Bye.